Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today is a phenomenal day. We have officially ended the government shutdown. That is the shutdown that funds the government. For those who don't know, for about 30 or 40 days or so, we've been shut down. The American government was not running because it wasn't being funded. There was a dispute between certain line items within that budget that the Democrats didn't want to sign off on, and they held it up. The government attempted, or the Republicans in the government attempted, to get a CR bill passed just so we could fund the essential things of the government while they hash out the major issues. Unfortunately, that dragged out for 40 days. And long and behold, they have finally buckled, the Democrats, that is, and Trump was able to win over 6 additional Democratic votes in the Senate to actually seal the deal and end the shutdown. Now, that process then led into it going back to the House. They passed it, and Trump signed off. Let's jump back to when that moment took place after 39 days of a shutdown. Let's go ahead and see what that looked like.
News Nation's Hannah Brandt live for us in the Russell Rotunda tonight with the very latest. And Hannah, what are we hearing?
Well, Natasha, this hour, it looks like this new proposal to reopen the government and end this shutdown does have enough votes to pass. Of course, it's not a done deal until it is, right? And we're expecting votes to take place sometime in the next hour, according to Senate Republican leadership, who says at this point they're feeling pretty good about their chances to get this proposal across the finish line. So let's talk about exactly what's in this new deal to potentially reopen the government. You're taking a look at some of the key pieces here. This proposal would fund the government at its current levels through the end of the month of January. It would also include 3 appropriation bills for a full year of funding for military construction and Veterans Affairs, the Agriculture Department, which means money for the SNAP program, and the legislative branch, which is, of course, Congress. Plus, this proposal, we're told by Democrats, would rehire federal workers who were laid off during this shutdown and give full back pay to all federal workers. What isn't included in this package, though, is a solution for those health care subsidies that have been at the heart, this key issue of this shutdown. Those subsidies, remember, they're set to expire next month. Democrats have been pushing all along to try and extend them. But this proposal does not do that. What we're told instead by Democrats is that Majority Leader John Thune, as part of this agreement, has promised to hold a vote on that issue soon. But holding a vote doesn't guarantee that it'll actually pass, meaning there's no guarantee for Democrats that they'll be able to get those healthcare subsidies extended. And it certainly doesn't guarantee a vote on this issue in the House either. Now, tonight, President Trump expressing optimism about where things stand, even as we have some Democrats saying they're disappointed in how this all turned out. Take a listen.
It looks like we're getting very close on the shutdown. We'll never agree to give any substantial money or any money to really prisoners, illegals that come into our country. And I think the Democrats understand that. And it looks like we're getting close to the shutdown ending.
No deal without health care. So far as I'm concerned, health care isn't included, and so I'll be a no.
Right now, we're waiting for that vote to happen as we watch, as you see on the Senate floor, what's happening there. But I have to stress, this will not be an immediate end to the shutdown. We've got to go through several steps here in the Senate, even though it looks like this proposal is on a track to pass. That's something that could take hours or even days. And then once it does pass through the Senate, it'll have to go back to the House and pass over there. And that would be the official end to this shutdown.
Okay. So then that progressed, as you could see, it progressed to the shutdown taking place here.
If you're looking for a business loan, an SBA loan is one of your best options. Why is that?
Leaders in Congress say that they're hopeful that the government shutdown could end as early as this week. And Local 10's Russ Ketchke is live on Capitol Hill, where a group of Democrats agreed to reopen the government. Russ?
Well, Calvin, those 7 Democrats and 1 independent senator who helped broker this deal over the weekend say the Democratic strategy at this point in the government shutdown, drawing that firm line in the sand on health care demands, simply was not yielding any productive results. They also say that some of the consequences of this government shutdown, from SNAP benefits lapsing to all the issues we've seen at airports across the country in the last few weeks, were becoming too big to ignore.
The American people have suffered for long enough.
The race to end the government shutdown is on as lawmakers work to finalize a deal brokered over the weekend.
We have to do this as quickly as possible.
The agreement was shaped by 8 members of the Democratic caucus, giving it just enough support to pass the Senate. It would reopen the government through the end of January and fund several government programs for a full year, including SNAP benefits and the VA. It also ensures federal workers laid off during the shutdown get their jobs back.
Are we going to stay in the shutdown for another month through Thanksgiving into Christmas? There's no end game.
One of those senators is Angus King, an independent from Maine, who says after 40 days of Democrats holding a hard line on health care demands, their strategy was failing and ultimately hurting Americans.
Let's move on, not make a lot of other people suffer in order to get a goal that wasn't attainable.
The deal includes a promise from Republicans to hold a vote next month on extending Affordable Care Act tax credits, but no guarantees it will pass.
Tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased health care costs.
But Democratic leaders blasting the move, saying it abandons their fight for health care.
So I cannot support the Republican bill that's on the floor because it fails to do anything of substance to fix America's health care crisis.
Expected to vote any minute now on that deal that was negotiated over the weekend. From there, though, the job is not done. The bill then has to be sent over to the House of Representatives, where it's expected to face some more resistance from Democrats, but Republicans will only need a simple majority to get it passed and sent to President Trump's desk for a signature.
Okay, so from there, after all of that development took place, they actually went ahead and passed it. They got it over to his desk. And we'll go ahead and share that. And
Trump
here's a moment.
in the Oval Office about to reopen officially the government. Let's check in.
Well, thank you very much. This is a big day tonight. Very important what is taking place, because we've seen how good government can be and how bad government can be, and people don't know what they're doing. For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion that they took us on. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. There's never been a time when one or the other party ever didn't sign a continuation. It's just a continuation, not a big deal. It's a continuation, and we'll talk later. Yet the extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. I want to thank Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, as well as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and numerous other great Republican leaders and congressmen and senators who are here and who frankly spent a long time in Washington getting this thing to go away. I also want to thank the broad coalition of Americans that stood with us in this fight to reopen government, including the Teamsters, the American Federation of Government Employees, the Fraternal Order of Police, AMVETS, the National Small Business Association, the American Farm Bureau, the American Trucking Association. These are all incredible patriots. the Airlines for America, the Allied Pilots Association, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, and many others, unions and non-unions. Over the past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do. They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid. And the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country. I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again. And don't forget, we have another date coming up in the not too distant future. We can never let this happen again. And we should be able to pass great, really great legislation. So I say terminate the filibuster because, by the way, the Democrats will do it immediately if they ever assumed office, which hopefully they won't. Today we had the highest stock market price ever in all of the different markets. We set a record. It's the 48th time in the 9 months that I've been in office that we had this record set. So think of that, 48 times we had a record set, but today is the highest of them all. We're going to break new grounds. Nobody would have thought. I have with us not only the great political leaders, but the great business leaders of our country. They're standing right behind me and right really alongside of me. And if we would have told them a year ago that we'd be having stock prices this high, none of them, in fact, I just asked them that question, none of them would have believed it. And that inures to jobs and, very importantly, to 401ks, which have also set a record today, a record high for the people that have 401ks. And also, I want to thank Walmart because they came up with a fantastic study. It was the cost of Thanksgiving coming up and the cost of Thanksgiving from a year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden, and we're 25% lower this year than we were a year ago. And it's a very inclusive report. So I want to thank Walmart. They've done it for many years, but we believe in that, and we believe in that company. I want to also thank the 8 Senate Democrats who finally did the right thing in voting to end this craziness, this madness. But unfortunately, the vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really did suffer, too. And the Democrats admitted. They said, well, no, we finally have a point. Even though people have to suffer, we finally have a point. And that didn't work out too well for them. But they really went out and they could appease the fringe benefits of their far-left base. But that didn't work out because now their far-left base is angrier than ever before. We actually elected a mayor of New York City who happens to be a communist. When was that going to happen? Remember, I said all the time during my campaign, we will never be a socialist country. And that's right. We turned out to have a communist in New York City. And if you look at his views, those are the views of a communist, not a socialist. So this is no way to run a country. I hope we can all agree that the government should never be shut down again. End the filibuster, terminate the filibuster. It'll never happen again. So with my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans. Again, costs are way down. Energy is way down. Gasoline is at $2.50 a gallon versus $4.70 for the Democrats. And we think we're going to hit pretty close to $2 a gallon. That's like a really massive tax cut. It's the equivalent of that. And speaking of tax cuts, our great, big, beautiful bill is giving everybody in our economy, middle income workers, low income, everybody, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And it's no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and very importantly, no tax on overtime. You work overtime, there's no tax. That's among the things that add up to the biggest tax cut in history. One other thing, you hear about rich people with deductions. Well, when you buy your car and you borrow money, you're allowed to now deduct the interest on that loan. So you can take that interest deduction and what you can take is that interest payment and deduct it for income tax purposes. That's a tremendous tax cut right there. But it all includes fixing the healthcare system that Democrats broke with the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare was a disaster from day one. It's done nothing but go up. And if you remember President Barack Hussein Obama, when he came up with this crazy idea, he said everything's going to be great, rates are going to go down, payments are going to go down, everything's going to go down. It went the exact opposite, with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. Their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you go out and you'll buy your own health insurance and you'll negotiate different plans and you'll get much better insurance, and you will be an entrepreneur for yourself. So I'm always willing to work with anyone, including the other party. We'll work on something having to do with health care. We can do a lot better. We can do great. So much money is involved, and we're willing to pay so much money to the people. So we're going to pay a lot of money to the people. They're going to go out and buy their own health care, and we're going to forget this Obamacare madness. So with all of that, I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you.
That symbolizes a victory for Donald J. Trump. Okay, now I did want to share something else with you guys. What was the point of this whole thing? If this shutdown happened, why did it happen? It's really for political points that the other side wanted to score against Donald Trump. They feel everything he does is against them, and therefore they are going to do everything in their power to hinder any progress he may make or any positive light he's been getting. And he has won a lot of cases in the Supreme Court with regards to his policies, despite their attempts to slow his progress. And, this is yet another one of those areas where they thought they could slow him down and change the momentum of support that he has. And unfortunately, it didn't work to their favor. Now, that being said, there was some backlash as a result of this shutdown, and it did have real impact on people's lives. One of those things I'll look to highlight here, and let me go ahead and just kind of share the screen so you all can see what I mean. According to ChatGPT, when I asked what was the impact of the government shutdown, it actually listed that impact in a few different categories. There's an economic impact, there's a disruption of service, there's social services, and then it concludes. So we'll read through it. Economically, the impact was GDP loss. A government shutdown can shave off a notable percentage of GDP growth. For instance, recent analysis estimate that each week of a shutdown can cost the economy about $7 billion, equating to zero point 0.1 percentage points reduction in GDP growth. If prolonged, the total economic impact could reach 1.8 to 2 percentage points of GDP growth. Now, that's significant. So in this case, if it was costing the U.S. economy $7 billion a week, and we went into 40 days of this shutdown, that's 5 weeks. We're looking at a $35 billion impact over the course, a little more than that. Let's round that up to about, let's say it's about close to $40 billion impact on the economy for the shutdown. Now, was that worth it? I mean, the senator raised the point. One of the Democratic senators who voted for the bill to pass, he said, look, we were taking a stand on something that was not a realistic goal for us to accomplish. The government was holding off on funding the rest of the government solely because they could not get the funding, the subsidized funding necessary to keep Barack Obama's Obamacare plan alive for a lot of people. And it's just not sustainable, and it's not realistic to assume that Trump was going to give them $1.5 trillion to fund or to subsidize healthcare that was ultimately going to be more expensive anyway. So that's not feasible. And what they were doing is essentially holding the nation hostage to try to sort of negotiate those terms. And it's just not, it makes no real sense for them to do it. Unemployment. The shutdown can lead to increased unemployment rates as federal workers are furloughed and business dependent on government contracts face delays and cancellation. This can create a ripple effect in the job market, affecting consumer spending and overall economic confidence. Now, this I can directly relate to. If you ever done any consulting work, especially for the government, you can relate to this. And there are a lot of people that are impacted as a result of the shutdown. You may think, it's just the government, I have nothing to do with me, until you have to take a flight somewhere outside of the country and it's delayed, or somewhere in the country and it's delayed, and there's not enough air traffic controllers to guide the flights. So now they're scaling back, which delays your flight, which sometimes cancels your flight. And now it has a real impact on you, not just in the people losing their jobs, but in your convenience, in the services that you normally would have access to. All right, moving on. The second category of disruption is disruption of service. Federal employees during a shutdown, many federal employees are furloughed, meaning they are sent home without pay. Although they typically receive back pay once the shutdown ends, the immediate loss of income can strain household finances for many families. Public services. Essential services may continue, but many non-essential functions are halted. This can lead to delays in processing applications for passports, small business loans, and government benefits. For example, food safety inspections may be reduced, impacting public health. So there's the real impacts. We talked about the airlines being affected. Now they've mentioned a few others being, your passports and travel and, loans and government benefits like the SNAP program, where people are expected to get assistance to buy food. All that stuff is impacted. So there isn't one area in society that's not affected by this disagreement that government is having. The next category is social services and programs related to that. Nutrition assistance. We talked about it. Programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, may face funding lapses, which it did, affecting millions of low-income families who rely on these benefits for food security. Now, you have to understand, a lot of the low-income people happen to be minorities, and unfortunately, that's a big base for the Democratic Party. That's a big chunk of their voting bloc. So now those people who depend on government to help them essentially get food assistance, have money to buy food, is now seeing that the government's not helping them have money to buy food. So what do you think they're going to do? Naturally, they're not going to vote. They're going to be upset with the Democratic elected officials because, hey, you're not supporting us. Like, we're being affected by the way you're managing your business in Capitol Hill, and they're not going to stand for it. And then going back to air travel and safety, airports may experience staffing shortages leading to longer wait times and potential safety concerns. This can disrupt travel plans for millions of Americans. Conclusions. The effects of government shutdowns are far-reaching, impacting not only the economy, but also the daily lives of citizens who depend on government services and support. While some economic losses may be recovered once the government reopens, the immediate consequences can create significant challenges for individuals and businesses alike. Understanding these impacts is crucial for anticipating the broader implications of future shutdowns. Economic consequences of a government shutdown, how the longest government shutdown ever impacted economic growth, etc. Well, I thought it was important to show that, that the decisions we make when we vote for our officials actually have real life effect, right? You definitely want to vote for people who are considering your interests, considering your life and your livelihood, considering your family and your needs as a citizen. And if you're in a situation where people are just causing shutdowns to take place simply because they want to score political points for their own self-gain at your expense, that's something you have to look at and say, well, look, I don't know if that makes sense for me. Now, again, I'm sure there's things that can be hashed out and there's ways that this could have been avoided. But what you have is a lot of times, stubborn people who, when there's no direct impact to them, make selfish decisions to gratify themselves and not to serve the people they were elected to serve. And so for that, it's a shameful act. But that being said, I am glad that the shutdown's coming to an end. It's still going to take some time for people to get their back pay. It's still going to take some time for things to kind of get rolling again, because essentially the government came to a halting stop. But in soon time, we should start to see the effects take place, and things should level out. For those of you who remain prayerful during the shutdown, my prayers and everything go out to you and your families. And those of you who are not connected to the In the Court Show, we ask that you like and subscribe and stay connected, and also let your voice be heard on this subject and others. We try to cover a wide range of topics, but this is very important because it affects people's lives. So thank you for tuning in, and until we speak again, God bless you.